The Can I Borrow Your Car podcast is dedicated to transforming how financial advisors and client-focused professionals grow their business through referrals. Drawing on decades of expertise, best-selling books, and industry recognition, the podcast's mission is to help listeners fill their sales funnel with more ideal clients than they require. By building a referral system rooted in generosity, respect, and genuine care for relationships. Get ready to get started. Here's your host, Mike Garrison.
Woo! Welcome to the Can I Borrow Your Car podcast. I am your faithful and somewhat erratic host, Mike Garrison, and our guest today is a new friend, but that doesn't reflect the amount of value and love I have for Scott. I got to meet Scott online, sadly, first. But, just because it's the devil's playground doesn't mean that you can't accomplish great things there. But I discovered Scott online and was just immediately attracted to everything he does. And then I got to meet him in Florida at the 2025 Exit Planning Institute Summit. Wow, that's a mouthful. And he was even better. It was just so cool. I tried not to hug him all the time and monopolize his time there too much. Yeah, get off of me. So Scott, how would you introduce yourself to the audience? Maybe one or two people.
Both of them at the same time?
Not just you and me.
I am a professional failure.
Nice.
And I should say I'm a professional steward of a failure. And I will say that because 10 years ago, my life shifted dramatically, and 99+% of what I do today is rooted in what happened 10 years ago at age 50. That makes me 60. So, in a nutshell, I'm a steward of what has happened. I'm a steward of my story because everything I do revolves around what happened and what I learned through that process.
Absolutely.
Is that fair enough?
It's super fair. And even though this is not about that, meaning that people, you need to go, that story is out there. That story is very powerful. I'm trying to make Scott write books about it, but so far he has resisted my authority in that area of his life, which is not surprising. So Scott, when you really look at Can I Borrow Your Car, when you look at our relationship, I think it's a great example of collaboration on multiple levels, from purely commercial to eternal, right? That there's all these different layers of ways that you and I value relationships, how we perceive them, how we structure them, culturally, business-wise, all these different things. And I think one of the reasons that we connected is you and I do share profound failure. I got, because I'm an impetuous early person, I got to my, the extrovert failed 10 years before you did. So I just wanted to get it out of the way, have profound international failure. But I will say that the successes that you and I did experience, knowing your story, were because of collaboration. Our pathway out of that failure to being a steward of a story was about collaboration. And now our application for our purpose, for our calling, is about collaboration. We just have some advantages that Jesus Christ is kind of in charge of the entire process, which from my perspective is reassuring. I'm never responsible for everything, which should be reassuring for most people that interact with me.
Yeah.
That is so layered.
Where do we go from there? I mean, that's just...
I don't know. All right, so let's start with this. Let's talk about your practice. So Scott has got sometimes I've discovered that I'm too ebullient and too excited about people that I turn off some of the people. Well, that's too bad. Here we go. Scott's got this, and he's about to describe it better. So don't hang up yet. Don't turn off the podcast yet. But it's a fourth quarter coach. And really what it's about is this really beautiful process of helping people that have experienced success as a business leader, right, navigate a really precipitous and unpleasant journey from their present vocation to the next one. And there are both objective and subjective elements that cannot be removed from a process that is, number one, servant oriented toward these clients of yours,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then number
Right.
two, honoring their human experience and their human journey. So if you were going to describe it better, the fourth quarter coach, how'd you get to it and what does it mean to you?
So the fourth quarter, I believe very strongly that we can have more impact in our fourth quarter than all three prior quarters combined. And I'll tell you why. And this is the heart of this is, in essence, what gets me up in the morning. When an executive or a business owner experiences a career transition, they now have ingredients. They've got more time than they've ever had in their entire life. They have more resources than they have ever had in their entire life. They've got more wisdom and knowledge over years of experience. And in the fourth quarter, we swim in the waters of mortality. So there is, in essence, a sense of urgency that adds to those ingredients. Okay? So all of those are ingredients. What we need is a recipe to maximize and leverage all of those things. Let's talk about the exit space for a moment, the exit planning space. For so many, exit is like the going out the back door, and out the back door is this cliff into a black abyss, and it's always something, it's a source of uncertainty.
Yeah, I think a lot of people view it as a death, as an end.
As an end. That's right. That's right. Exit is somewhere along the line I heard, I'm going to ride off into the sunset. What in the world does that mean?
Nothing
Right?
good to me.
So I'm on a quest in this fourth quarter emphasis, or fourth quarter impact, I like to call it, of replacing the word exit with launchpad. It is actually not what you think it is. It is even more than you think it could ever be. It is a launch pad into your finest years. We're living longer than we've ever lived before. Science will not let us die. There's AI coming along to allow us to leverage our time more than we have ever had in our entire existence. And we have the capability of having a immense impact. And we talk about legacy, right? Legacy is something everybody kind of thinks about, leaving a legacy. I prefer to live a legacy that ends up being left and continues. So my clients get to experience their legacy and see the impact and be hands and feet and involved in the atmosphere of that impact while they're living. So there is not only a loss of regret or a reduction of regret, but there's an increase in fulfillment. When you're making an impact with your story, two things inevitably happen. Your fulfillment in today goes up and regrets of tomorrow go down. Will there still be regrets? Yes, but you're slowing the rate of regret. Robert Louis Stevenson said, sooner or later we sit down to a banquet of consequences.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is not, will I sit down to a banquet of consequences? The question is, when I sit down to a banquet of consequences and I slow down and I begin to really reflect on this 80-year life that I've had, what am I going to feast on? What do you want to feast on? Do you want to feast on things that you wish you had done differently? Or do you want to feast on things that you are so jazzed about having been involved in? I prefer the latter, and that's what I help people do. The fourth quarter came through a branding process. I was all over the map trying to serve anybody and everybody. I had not read Dr. Henry Cloud's book, Necessary Endings, so I had beginnings all over the place, and it was watering me down. And no one knew what I stood for. Nobody knew what I did because I tried to do everything for everybody. my branding coach. We spent 44 months together, and that morphed into, okay, who do I feel like I understand the most? And that was the Gen X crowd. But then I got to thinking about life and the breadth of the brevity of life, the vapor that we live, the 80 years or so. And I got to thinking math, 4 quarters. The first quarter is our learning quarter. That's where we're being nurtured. We're going to school. We hit our 20s and 30s. We go into a building quarter. We're building our name, our family, our career, our financial footing, all that sort of thing. So we're building a our life. Then we hit the 40s and 50s, which I call the reaping quarter. We begin to reap what we built. Our 3-year-old is now a 12, 13, 14-year-old who can watch the other kids, and we can go out and do things differently. We have savings. We have all this sorts of stuff. And then we hit the fourth quarter, and I call that the impacting quarter, because now we've got all this leverage. If your readers want a book to read, I would highly recommend the book From Strength to Strength. You're
But
feeding into that second growth of strength, which is crystallized wisdom and knowledge. And you can leverage all of that. That's actually another ingredient. That's the wisdom that you've gained over the years, the things you've learned through your mistakes and through the failures. And now you can apply them with the time and resources and this sense of urgency because, a good friend from high school died suddenly, and you begin to awaken to the fact, oh my word, I'm in my own
right.
fourth quarter, right? So I kind of rambled there. I can't even remember your question, but that's what fourth quarter means.
It's really, that's what I was looking for, is kind of like people get some traction on Scott's vision. It's so interesting when you think about neurology, like neuroscience. You know, number one, your brain changes over time.
Mhm.
And so, like, I liken it to this: is like your technical acumen has a peak, right? Your ability to operate at the highest specificity with maximum results in a given endeavor, right? That is and there's a lot of research in this. You can look it up. I'm not going to argue about it on the internet. But a shift happens usually sometime around 40 or so, where your brain, because you've aged, moves out of a hyper specificity genius to a more collaborative thing, which is really a beautiful thing if you think about it, business or personal. Is like, don't fight collaboration. Instead, embrace it as a new, not necessarily vocation, but a new aspect of how you collaborate. And like, when you think about your business, working with these business owners, and you think about potentially the dozens of different people that are also working with that business owner from your perspective, and you can go back to your construction background, or you can stay right here on fourth quarter coach because it's still valuable. But from
Mhm.
your perspective, when you look at collaboration, when did you kind of discover or feel like you knew that it was important and that you had to be aware of it and get better at it?
Okay, that's a great question.
Thank
There
you.
are 2 points that I can draw from. One is prior to losing my career, one is after I lost my career. So prior to losing my career, we were a design build company who we designed and built churches across America. And we had a management consultant in a leadership conference with us say to us one day, "You are not a construction company. You are a relationship building company that is attached to construction," which was very profound for us because what we did, my dad came out of a design build rolling mill machinery a mindset. He's a preacher's kid. His dad was going through a building program, and the owner or the contractor inflated final invoice and skipped town, leaving grandpa without a church, which was the origin story. So he took that design build mentality in the early 70s and brought it to construction long before design build became a real thing in construction. It was all design bid build, uh, which meant that we would get the designers and the engineers, and we would get the subcontractors all together as a family for that church, and we would oversee it, superintend and project manage it. So this management professional said, "You're a relationship building company that's attached to construction." And by the way, as I reflect on that, had we had a SEPA working with us, and 8 happened, which was the beginning of the end for our family business, we could have pivoted because we could apply that relationship building competency to any industry,
Any.
right? So there's one example of how collaboration is so crucial, because we were neck deep in collaboration. That was the engine of our business, our family business.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to fast forward to I call it the arrhythmia stage
Huh.
that I entered into after I came out of the cloud of, I lost my identity, I lost my career, I lost my income. What do I do? I started to operate without strategy, but out of panic. And so I'm sad to say that I had engaged in not one, not two, but 3 programs
Mhm.
designed for coaches to create high ticket clients. We will help you get high ticket clients. In fact, whenever anybody connects with me on LinkedIn and I see high ticket clients, immediately I just won't do it, because I've been burnt 3 times. It took me 3 times to stop doing that. Here's the reason. It's a 6-month program. It's thousands of dollars. I'm 4 months into it, and it is not who I am. The thing about coaching, which is what I do, first of all, the oil that makes the coaching engine run is trust. That is the currency, the oil, the thing that is, if without it, it's the blood that runs through the industry. Trust and relationship. And all 3 of these programs, there could be programs out there with high ticket sales that are not like this. And if there are, I apologize. I shouldn't lump them all into the same. But my experience in all 3 were, here's how you can manipulate the discovery call. It's not really a discovery call. It's a manipulative call using NLP,
It's basically
using
trap.
get them to say yes 7 times, and they're likely to say yes when you say, will you work with me? It just wasn't genuine. It wasn't real. And that's why I call it rhythmia. Ups and downs, ups and downs, ups and downs, until I hit the wall and realized the very essence of what I do is collaborative in nature, not only with me and my clients, but with the world in which I build my business. Collaborative, relationship, and trust.
It's 100%, because like, and I've been a coach a really long time as well. I'm a heavily consultative focus coach because that's kind of how I roll. You know, like, what are the numbers? Now that we got the numbers, let's talk about you, right? So I always use business and numbers and things like that and goals, but we always end up at the same place whenever we're talking about collaborating with another person or an organization to achieve performance that they desire, right?
Right.
If it's their performance improvement, organizationally or individually, if that's what we're doing, I cannot dictate that. Right? Fundamentally, I'm collaborating with my clients, and I've discovered that the currency, which is trust, is fueled by another thing, right? Which is willingness, right? And so if I'm dictating, it's my energy and my commitment which is bad fuel, which is taking us to the next level, versus if we really collaborate at exit planning or the stuff I do, stuff you do, the client has to want to do it.
Yeah.
Like, otherwise, at a given point, depending upon your endurance or theirs, it will crater and fail. And I'm very blessed to have had some relationships with clients that are almost a decade in length. Different permutations in there, never 10 years nonstop coaching. There's just these different seasons of growth. But no, that was perfect. So I got a couple things for you. And I'm looking for the overall vision now after everything you've been through. From your perspective, how can a business owner, how can a consultant or coach, because we're all hopefully are business owners as well, or even employees, like how do we pick the right professionals to collaborate with? What are some of we've already talked about how you've learned to identify people with coaching programs that may not be successful.
How not to do it.
Like what are some, and I don't want you to feel tied down to giving some, Einstein level thing, but like from your perspective, what are some things to look for? What are some things to be thinking about for the listeners when we're looking to collaborate successfully?
Well, I watched a reel once by Chris Voss, and a tremendous insight that
Smart dude. That is a
Yeah,
smart dude.
that's right. I can't remember the question posed to him, but the answer that he gave was, ask them this question. Tell me 3 people that you admire, and tell me 3 things about each of them that makes you admire them. He said the first person that they will say will be the person that they think you want to hear, that makes them look good. But you're giving them 3. But by the second person, they're giving you things they admire about that person. What they're really doing is they're telling you what they care about, what drives them. So I've begun to incorporate that in some of my early collaboration conversations with colleagues. Just this may sound like it's out of left field, but it helps us to understand who we are. Tell me 3 things, 3 people that you admire in your life, and 3 things about each one. And inevitably you will get a good feel for where they're coming from. Because if I can't connect with you on some basic worldview ideas, principles, then it's likely we're not going to really click. I mean, the reason you and I clicked, there were so many you too moments. And what I mean by that is, you too? Like, you like fly fishing too? Right? Okay, now that's a connection that we have that we both share.
You
Right?
like Jesus?
What? Yeah, Jesus. You're a believer as well. Okay, there's another you too moment. These are things that draw us together. It's amazing what a you too does to connect us. 4 or 5 people, totally strangers in
So
an
powerful.
elevator, all of a sudden the elevator stops. Now everybody has a shared experience, and that deepens their connection, and they may go on to be connected for years.
Yeah. And so I'm going to tie this directly to Can I Borrow Your Car and building a referral business, right? One of the things that you really highlighted here is you cannot collaborate with everyone.
No, I've tried it. It doesn't work.
You fundamentally don't have time.
No.
Even like one of the greatest word of mouth marketers of all time was Jesus Christ. And he was discipling 500 people at a time through 12 people. Another, like whether you're secular or whether you're religious, this process of understanding that collaboration is not a wide angle strategy. And to be really brutal, because I do believe we're here to be discerning and count the cost. Like one of the most cynical and evil things you can do is to present yourself as collaborating when really what you're doing is deceiving. Like, so for example, like it's important for me. Some people might be deeply concerned when they read my book and discover I'm a Christian, or they look at a website, or they listen to this podcast and they hear the world's most offensive word, Jesus, right? They hear that and they may not want to work with me. And number one, if you're still listening, I want you to hear that that's why I wanted to say it. I didn't say it to attract Jesus people to me.
Right.
I'm saying it to let people know who I am and where I am, because in my opinion, there are few things more despicable from a coach consultant standpoint than to let people discover after they have trusted you, the initial trust phase, after they have paid you. And I charge a significant amount of money, and so do you, right? after they paid me for them to discover that they wouldn't want to work with me if they'd already known, right? I'm not here. I'm here to tell everyone that will listen about what I believe in and why it's important to me, but I'm not here to require everyone to pay me or everyone to have to be in relationship with me. That's not my job because I care about everyone, right? And a big part of that care is this is who I am. This is what I'm about. This is what I'm looking to do. You too.
Mhm.
And if it's like, and I get a lot of you too from people that don't believe in Jesus Christ,
Right.
but they believe in this honoring of humanity and this caring for people and intentionality. And that's what collaboration is. Collaboration is intimate.
Yeah.
It's intimate, you know, which is why all coaches should be collaborators because coaching is really intimate.
Mhm.
You're coaching someone who has decided to be vulnerable about something they care about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's a tremendous responsibility to do
Yeah.
that. Going back to the disciples and that whole thing, God is the inventor. Jesus invented the one-to-many principle. I mean, it's just, and that's what I love about working with a business owner, because that business owner has a circle of influence.
Yes.
Help.
Ripples.
There's always ripples there because we do not live in a void, a vacuum. There is no way that you can live your life in a total vacuum where there's no impact on anyone else. And that's also why I like rubbing shoulders and coming up against, not against, but rubbing shoulders and being with advisors to business owners. Because if I can help an advisor be better at making a connection and being more immersive in their clients' lives, that's a one-to-many for me,
Yeah.
where
I
I
mean,
may never meet some of their clients.
I'm putting you on the spot. I'm so I'm a visionary exhorter guy, right? I see it, and so there is something you and I are going to do together for advisors about their fourth quarter
Let's do it.
because we are, in my experience, some of the worst people at that.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
I mean, it's like business owners have a hard time separating their identity, but one-to-one consultants and coaches, holy moly. You know, when I think about retiring or moving to something else, like depending upon where I'm at spiritually in that moment, there's often a cold sweat, this huge fear, like, well, what do I do? What do I do? And that's strictly because I have I have mistakenly defined myself by that one particular role, and I haven't done what you wish you had done with the construction company, and said, well, what does this skill look like? You know, and it's it's really powerful because like the worst thing that happens when people sit down with you, Scott, like the worst thing that would happen is they would figured out that they were so happy and loved so much what they were doing right now, they're going to do it a little bit longer.
Hmm. Yeah, right.
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 I mean, I mean, like, and but
Still,
that doesn't diminish your value as a fourth
no,
quarter coach. But
no.
that's the worst thing that happens when people get to talk to you, is they go, "Wow, that's so amazing," and then they go through this process of really thinking about their fourth quarter, and they're like, "Well, you know what? I can do my fourth quarter right here. I'm just going to stop running the company, but I'm going to stay. I'm just moving to an outer office, and I'm now a discipler within the organization. I'm not leading it. I'm not running it. My fourth quarter, I don't have to move. I just have to change. You know,
Yeah. See, that's a transition. A transition is a transition is a transition.
say that again.
Well, I could. Let me say it backwards. A transition is a transition is a transition. So we get so caught up in the word exit that we get this idea that there's one path that we all have to squeeze somehow into this one path. Exit is the only thing. And okay, I'm going to sell it, right? But there are so many iterations of exit that it makes more sense to call it a transition. And by the way, transition, at the heart of a transition is what takes place inside.
At the heart.
At the heart, right. Which is why
Literally.
it's called at the heart. The rest of it is how it plays out. Right. So,
Absolutely. I just
and
want to, just because I think there are people that are in exit plan that follow my content. I know of like 2 or 3, maybe more. Right.
Mhm.
I just want to clarify that Scott and I, because I'm going to speak for Scott now, which is one of the most dangerous things you could do with a friend. Right. But like, this is not, in no way are we devaluing exit planning.
Mm-mm.
Right. But the reality is, and this is how I present it to business owners, whether I'm talking to my clients, which are usually owners of financial services firms or other value driving consultants. Those are my clients.
Mhm.
Or I'm talking to a large group of diverse business owners on behalf of a client, right? Those are the
Mhm.
2 things I do, right? I'm always talking about the reality that an exit is going to happen and it will either be involuntary or voluntary.
Mhm.
And what's really important and why the transition process is inherently collaborative with you and what you do in the fourth quarter is how do we, if we have the option of a voluntary transition, how do we conceive of that without fear? How do we manage the process of that transition as a steward, hopefully, of our employees, of our clients, of our community, of ourselves, of our immediate and our extended families? How do we manage that transition well? And there is planning required, right?
Mhm.
Both of us wish we'd had a SEPA, right? Because a
Right.
SEPA would have had us have some unpleasant internal conversations about what would you do if,
Right.
right? And I think that's the beauty of the fourth quarter coach, which is providing a mechanism by which a leader can voluntarily start thinking about what's next and not having it be some amorphous, untangible
Right.
process, but instead, and that's what I love most about what you do, just to say it's vocation. So like Scott,
Okay.
I'm not going to give away the farm, but Scott basically exhorts leveraging trust as currency, exhorts these leaders, and just reading his stuff was massively powerful for me, right? But Scott has them go through a process
Absolutely.
of exploring and vetting within themselves, with his assistance, a vocation. It's not, hey, we need to have X amount of money to then not have to work. And now you figure out what you're going to do, which is why so many people are miserable after they
Mhm.
exit, because they
Mhm.
really did die. That
Yeah.
whole identity died, and now
Right.
they're trying to be born again in a situation they've never been in. And from a technical standpoint, what people don't seem to understand as much in exit planning is psychologically, when you transition from accumulation to distribution in a financial sense, your mental risk tolerance for how you approach life and how you make decisions is often unconsciously dramatically different. I would argue so strenuously that you have to pick your next vocation while you're experiencing cash flow from your business.
Mhm.
And then test it.
Mhm.
Test, like,
Right.
test it.
Absolutely. So going back to the reason, life coaching, woo woo, emotions, I don't want to cry, I'm feeling anxiety, but I'm never going to tell my advisor that because I'm too proud. All of that. And we've called it soft skills, right? And I don't mean it's what I mean is soft meaning, oh, don't worry about it. Let's get to the hard stuff, right? The reason we have not spent more time on soft skills and life coaching type stuff is because we have
Because they're
not
hard.
had a framework.
No, it's because they're hard.
Well, yeah, they're hard and sticky and messy, and we don't know where it leads and all that sort of thing. Through my experience, it was more of a how do I get my bearings on where I'm at in my life, because I literally lost my career of almost 30 years. Yeah, my income, and I thought I lost my identity. So building a framework to get back into the rhythm of life has now become the backbone framework of my process. So people I work with don't have to wrestle with it on a, one step forward, three steps back, two steps sideways. There is we are literally building value awareness. And then you're saying, I want to try this new vocation or this new way of doing this vocation. And here's why. Here's why it makes sense for me to go in this direction. It may not ultimately be the thing that I end up doing, but you can't steer a car unless the car is moving forward. So we move forward toward a vocational option or two, but it's rooted in the work we do in a framework that highlights what their greatest values are, what means the most to them, which I would argue in the Christian language was how we were designed in the first place. So why not become the fullest expression of your unique God-given design? When you do that, fulfillment goes through the roof, regrets goes down, and the ripple effect is so powerful.
Yeah.
Because you're
It's not
inside
always
out.
fun, right? We like picking up your cross doesn't mean that everything is Pollyanna and everything's going to be great, but it does mean that you are not a victim of the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hey, we got to land this plane.
Okay.
So this is volume 1 of this podcast, because we got more we're going to cover down the road. But like I want to end with just throwing this out to you. You've had an opportunity to interact with a lot of people that value collaboration at the Exit Planning Summit, Institute Summit. Like you were on main stage, you got to talk to lots of people, you interact with a lot of people, both physically in your relationships where you are in Ohio and in your EPI chapter, but you
Mm-hmm.
also interact with a lot of people on the internet. When they're looking at collaboration, when they're looking at what you're doing, when they're thinking about their work, what's something I didn't ask you about? What's something that you would tell them to have them take an action and move forward with explicitly collaborating, thinking about it on a conscious level?
That's a good question. I think understanding, going back to what you said, we're limited in time and energy. So again, Christ had a great way of doing this. What is it? Jerusalem, Samaria, and to the ends of the earth, right? Start here, build out, go, continue. So inside out. So based on the fact that we do not have a lot of time and energy that we can just throw to the wind, your best bet is to work with a few people and go deep with them, and then branch and begin to be a good steward of the amount of energy that maybe it's kind of weird. You can go a mile wide and an inch deep, and I don't think that does any good for anybody. I mean, it's just, hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? In fact, I've stopped doing that because if you looked at my calendar in the last 6 months or so, you would say, oh my word, how did you get it all done? I didn't get it all done. I just had a lot of conversations that ended up that's it. Boom. We didn't go anywhere because I didn't have time. I'm shifting that now and I'm slowing down. When you go slower, the sponge absorbs more liquid. And so I would say that I would do that first.
It's so cool. One of the things that really confirmed what you're saying to me was I was going through a disciple making training, and they showed us a mathematical difference between street evangelism, one-on-one proselytizing, and disciple making. And the world tells you that you need to be wide and thin because that's how you win right now, right? You can have 1,000 conversations much faster than you can build deep relationships. However, Once you get to that second generation, right, the math starts to shift. And I think it's the third disciple down, 1, 2, 3, it's exponential growth.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the question that and the exhortation that you're telling these people is like, fundamentally, if you're going to be in your business for over a year, go deeper with less, and you'll experience much, much greater resilience and results over time.
Yeah,
But you have to be patient. Yeah, you have to be patient. You have to do vision, but nobody wants to show you that math. I think I'm one of the few people that routinely talks about it. So, Scott, one last thing. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Number one, this has been spectacular. Every time I talk to you, it's just so freaking amazing. It's just incredible. How do people find out more about you? Because they're going to want to.
I'm prolific on LinkedIn. So that you'll find me there. I have a weekly newsletter. I just started doing Substack, which gives me a chance to be slower, to go deeper and faster and have more impact. So I don't have an email server that you subscribe. I used to. I didn't renew it, and I went to Substack so that I can have more connections with people. Hands down, LinkedIn. That's where I live. That's where I comment. That's where I produce.
What if they're want to go to your website? Where would they go?
They would go to servingstrong.com.
Yes. Well, I knew that, but I wanted you to say it.
Yeah.
So, hey,
Serving Strong.
This has been absolutely amazing. I think we're going to end it right here, but just on behalf of anyone that listens to this, thank you for sharing all this, Scott.
I consider it a great privilege to listen to you and interact with you. You always have thought-provoking questions and thoughts, and I don't agree with all of them, and I think that's really cool.
Good.
That's
Good.
really cool. Yeah.
It would be terrifying if you did.
But the bottom line is I'm a better person for having had conversations with you. So thank you for this.
I appreciate you, brother. All right, man.
All right. Talk to you later.
Thank you for joining us for the Can I Borrow Your Car podcast, your guide to growing your business by loving people, giving first, and earning the right to be introduced to your ideal clients. Visit caniborrowyourcar.com for more information and connect with Mike on LinkedIn. All links are included in the episode description. Until next time, be a safe driver.